Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Andini Fitria. My ID number T2019-6178 and I am from TBI 4. In my video YouTube now, I would like to tell you about the causative variables in language equations. Okay, for the first, comprehensible input and strength of the filter. In order to acquire, two conditions are necessary. The first is comprehensible, or even better, comprehend, input containing I plus 1, structures a bit beyond the acquired's current level. And second, allow our weak effective filter to allow the input in. And then for the second, language teaching. The more we know about language and language learning, the more informed decisions we make about language teaching. Its primary functions is to supply comprehensible input for those who cannot get it elsewhere, thus constrained by their situation, such as foreign language students who do not have input sources outside the class, or by their competence, thus unable to understand the language of the outside world, while it is less useful for those who have other sources of input. There still are things the competent classroom can contribute to the intermediate student. And then the third is exposure variables. There is no variation in the equations process itself, but there is in the rate and the extent equations as a result of the amount of comprehensible input received and the strength of the effective filter. And then the last one is performance, brought about by the extent of the learner's reliance of learned knowledge. And then three types of monitor users. Over users. This is when performers monitor all the time. As a result, they may speak with hesitation and usually correct themselves in the middle of the utterance. And then the next is under users. This is when performers depend only on the acquired system. They do so either because they have not learned, or because they don't want to use their learned system. They don't self-correct even if the three conditions are met. And then the last one is optimal users. This is when the performer uses the monitor process when it is suitable and will not affect communication. When the three conditions are met, the optimal performer will monitor to make his output more accurate. And then the fourth is age. It has been popularly assumed that age itself is a predictor of second language proficiency, that younger acquirers are better at second language acquisitions than older acquirers. And then the next affects the amount of comprehensible input that is obtained. And then the next is influences the affective state of the learner. And then the next is after puberty, the affective filter is likely to increase in strength. And then the next, um, younger learners may get more than older learners. And then age also affects learning. Older learners are better in studying language form and using learned knowledge in monitoring. And second language acquisitions and concluded that all published studies were consistent with these three generations. For the first, adult process. Third, the early stages of second language development faster than children do, where time and exposure are held constant. And then the second is older children acquire faster than younger children, time and exposure held constant. And then the last one is um, acquirers who begin natural exposure the second languages during childhood generally achieve higher second language proficiency than those beginning as adults. And then this is the last one is about the number 5 is acculturation. In type 1 acculturation, the learner is socially integrated with the TL group and as a result develops sufficient contact with TL speakers to enable him to acquire the TL. In addition, he is psychologically open to the TL such that input to which he is exposed becomes intact. And then type 2 acculturation has all the characteristic of type 1. But in this case, the learner regards the TL speaker as a reference group whose lifestyles and values he consciously or unconsciously desires to adopt. Both types of acculturation are sufficient to cause acquisitions of the TL, but the distinction is made to stress that social and physiological contact with the TL group is the essential component in acculturation as it relates to SLA. That adoption of the lifestyle and values of the TL group characteristic with characteristics traditionally associated with the notion of acculturation is not necessary for successful equation of the TL. Okay, maybe just that's all from me, and I say pardon to you all if many mistake in this video. I say thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.